So this is a topic that I've been trying to find the time to discuss for quite a long time, a few months at least. And that's just the idea that the generation of gaming that we're in right now has been the absolute worst in existence. Like, since NES forward, we're living in the worst generation of gaming. And I'm talking about the AAA side of things, the games and the franchises that really leave an impact and make you remember the consoles. And just looking at the number of franchises that were started last generation compared to what we've had now is staggering. And seeing it laid out the way that I got it laid out here is unreal to look at. So what I did, I went back and I looked at games that released from 2006 to 2008. That's like the launch window, like the first 2-3 years consoles getting out, and the franchises that come out during those times is what's going to set the stage for the rest of the generation cycle. So looking at the games that released in 2006, the franchises there are fucking unreal. And remember, what I did with this list is I only chose games that were heavily impactful and heavily enjoyed in the AAA market that weren't released the generation prior. So you have games that come out and they release on like PS2 and PS3 for this generation. I didn't count them. I'm talking generation versus generation, where we're at now compared to where we were in 2006 to 2008. You had franchises like Gears of War, Saints Row, you had Call of Duty 4, you had Mass Effect, Resistance, Assassin's Creed, BioShock, Dead Rising, you had Uncharted, you had Battlefield Bad Company, Soul Calibur 4, you had Killzone 2. If you guys remember when that launched on the PS3, it was unbelievable. You had Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter 2, Call of Duty World at War, Far Cry 2. There were so many franchises that were started and continued upon that were even better. Call of Duty 4 being the continuation and actually being better. Killzone 2 being better. You had Skate, which we don't see anymore. You had Crackdown. You had Grand Theft Auto 4. You had Halo 3. You had Brothers in Arms Hell's Highway, which was like the last game in the franchise besides the ones that are on fucking mobile. There were so many impactful titles that went on to launch franchises. Uncharted and Assassin's Creed, and even, I guess you could say, Left 4 Dead, Mass Effect, Borderlands. Like, last generation was phenomenal. I'm going to put the list on the screen here. You guys can see all the big games. Now, obviously, I know there's going to be some that you guys were fond of that didn't make the list. I'm just using this as a reference. These were the Omega, if you can understand that. Fast forward to 2013, we get the PS4, we get the Xbox One, and we get some great games. Games like Mad Max, games like Bloodborne, The Witcher 3. And then what I find is we get a bunch of games that were huge and great last generation. Games like Killzone. The new iteration on the PS4, Shadow Falls, was mediocre at best. You had Halo 5 Guardians. You had Metal Gear Solid 5. Rainbow Six Siege. Although, nothing wrong with Metal Gear Solid and Rainbow Six. I'm just saying the games that launched previous were infinite times better. Especially Rainbow Six. There wasn't a lot to offer. Now, again, people are going to be calling, hey, where's Uncharted? Look, I did the first 3 years on both lists. That's the launch window. That's how it works. But looking at these lists, is it crazy to think that maybe this generation hasn't been as good as people are saying it has? Again, we're talking AAAs. Obviously, with this generation, we have seen the rise of the indie. You had games like Child of Light, Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. You had all these great fucking indie games, right? But the AAA market is what drives sales. It's what drives consoles. It's what drives the entire marketplace. We can say that indies are great, and yeah, they are. But at the end of the day, it's the AAAs that hold this shit down. And I gotta say, I'm extremely disappointed with what we've gotten. And I could say games like Halo Master Chief Collection, but really it's just a collection. That's why you don't see games like The Last of Us on here, because when it launched on the PS4, it was just up-resed. It was already on last gen. You had games like Gears of War Ultimate Edition that didn't make the list. I'm not trying to be a fanboy. I just want to make sure that I got equal representation for the platforms here. You even compare Assassin's Creed to what we have Assassin's Creed Unity and how buggy that one was. It's phenomenal. The one thing that we didn't have last generation was new consoles. And this is kind of where the point of the video is going. When you guys see and when you actually look at what we have and what we've gotten over the last 3 years, how arrogant is Sony and Microsoft to offer new consoles at upgraded 4K resolutions and 60 FPS to play what? To play a handful of decent titles, when in years past we've gotten a metric fuck ton of franchise starters, of game changers? How arrogant. And what's the reason? What's the reason for the lack of AAA games? We see games like Destiny, which by the way didn't even make the list because it launched last generation copies as well. But you have games like Destiny touting $500 million marketing budgets. Why? What is the reason? It's obviously to drive sales. They want to get people enticed to drive sales, and they did just that. But when you're trying to recoup costs on $500 million marketing budgets, why? The games we get nowadays are so downgraded in comparison to features we got in games previous. It doesn't make sense. Another reason, outside of way inflated marketing budgets, is the risk factor of making new IPs. The attachment rate to new IPs is not that good. It's a risk to bring new IPs to the table. But is it? I mean, look at last generation. I mean, fuck, the list here proves it. There are so many new IPs on the table last generation at launch that it blows my mind that they didn't think that they could do it again. You have some of the most impactful games here from 2006 to 2008. Why are we still pushing Call of Duties and Battlefields and Assassin's Creeds all the time? And another question, speaking of Call of Duty and Battlefield, Call of Duty 4, when it launched in 2007, never launched on previous generation consoles. It never launched on the PS2 or GameCube or whatever. It was a new generation game. And the fact is you can't put a single Call of Duty in the new generation category from 2013 to 2015 because every single one of them has released last generation. So what changed? Was the attachment rate of the consoles not good enough and you thought you could still make sales last gen? And if that's the case, why was the attachment rate lower this generation? Because why isn't a Call of Duty able to make a list like this when last generation it was able to? Games like Grand Theft Auto 5 and Battlefield Hardline and even Battlefield 4 can't even make the list of games that released in this new generation that weren't on last gen. They can't make it, and I find that very strange. There's a lot of games that you guys might be thinking, why aren't they on the list? But it's because they released within 2 generations. So for new next gen, what they dub next gen IPs, what do we have? We have almost nothing when you look at the grand scope of everything that we've gotten before. And so it begs the question, why the fuck are people so excited for the PS4 Pro and the Xbox Scorpio when the games that we're playing are lackluster for the most part and are few and far between? It's frustrating because I think of franchises that have been completely forgotten about that started in 2006 and 2007 and 2008. Battlefield Bad Company. What an amazing run. Battlefield Bad Company 1 and 2 were fucking phenomenal Battlefield games. and we don't see them anymore. Skate is something that we don't see anymore. Brothers in Arms. Medal of Honor. We had Medal of Honor Airborne. We don't see that anymore either. They rebooted it and fucked it. You had Warhawk. I mean, so many titles. So when I say that this is the worst generation in gaming history, from the NES to literally today, the facts are right there. And we can talk about the indie scene and how the indies are on the come up. And that's great. But the thing is indies now, for the most part, again, there's going to be exceptions to this rule, but the majority of indie games now don't even give you the same amount of content as what you would deem the bargain bin games of generations previous. The experiences just aren't there, and I feel like you can't throw the entire gaming industry on the backs of indie developers. You just can't. But who do you turn to? I want to know why you guys are excited for PlayStation 4 Pro, for the Scorpio, for getting new consoles. I want to know the reason. I've been quoted on podcasts saying that I hope that these consoles flop, and I do, because I feel like this is setting a precedent that they can give us less and less and less, and we can give them more and more and more. My name is Big Fry. Thank you guys for watching. If you made it to the end of the video, I want you to use the keyword generation. That lets me know you made it to the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.